Hey guys, JLus here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to transform this image into this one using Photoshop. These are the stock images we're going to use, and I'm gonna put the links in the description down below. So without further ado, let's get creative. Okay, so first let's create a new document. So let's head over to File, let's click on New. And these are going to be the sizes here. So this is basically the size of our background, and then just click on create. Okay, so now it's time to drag our images. So first of course is our background, and then followed by our subject. So for this one we're gonna use select subject feature. So go to select and choose on subject, and then let's click on create layer mask. Okay, so we don't need this part over here, so we're gonna need a brush tool. So just press B or select the brush tool in the toolbar, and let's use a black foreground. So just press X or click this icon over here to make the foreground color into black. And then I'm gonna use a soft round brush for this one, and opacity and flow of 100%, and then just simply erase this part over here. Then right click here and convert it to a smart object. Okay, so now let's press on Ctrl T, and let's bring the size down somewhere over here. So now it's time to blend our subject with our background, and for this one we're gonna use the color balance adjustment layer. So let's click on the adjustment layer icon, and then let's select color balance. Let's create a clipping mask so that it only affects the subject and not the background. Make sure to check preserve luminosity so that we won't be increasing the brightness or the darkness whenever we make some changes in our slider. So I'm gonna go with the midtones first. So as you can see in our background, it is mainly composed of some magenta and some blue. Okay, so basically these sliders here, we're just gonna play around with them until we match the subject with our background. So first one here, if we move this one to cyan, it's going to be dark, so we're going to be adding some red. So are we gonna go with green? There's no green in the background, so we're gonna add some magenta. And of course there's no yellow in the background, so let's add some blue midtones. So we're gonna go back here later if we need something to change during the end result. So now let's go to the shadows. Let's try on some reds. It doesn't work, so we're gonna go with cyan. And then next we're gonna add some magenta. And then after that, there's no yellow for the shadows here, so we're gonna add some blue. So this just makes it darker. Let's decrease the cyan a little bit to make it less darker. Okay, so I think -15 will do. And the last thing we're gonna change are for the highlights. So for the highlights, we're gonna add some cyan, and then some magenta, and then maybe some blue, just a little bit. I think somewhere over 3 will do. So let's check if it fits the background. So this is the before, and this one is the after. So if you think it needs more tweaking, we can always go back, just double click here. Maybe let's go to the shadows. Let's play around with the slider a bit, and maybe let's make it darker for the cyan. Okay, so I think -20 will do. Just play around with the sliders until you get your desired result. Okay, so I think this one works for me. So it's really hard for me to match the color since I'm only using a laptop with only 65% color accuracy. So you might do better color correction than me. So I think I'm gonna settle with this. So the shadows here, for the midtones, and for our highlights. To make it blend more to our background, we can add another set of highlight adjustment layer. So let's go to the adjustment layer icon. Let's choose your saturation. Let's create a clipping mask, and let's check on colorize. So let's drag the slider over here to match the color of the background. And let's increase the saturation all the way to 100, and maybe add some lightness of, I think, +10. And then let's press on Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool by pressing B. And let's use a white foreground, so just press here. And remember to use a soft round brush and just lower your flow to somewhere below 20%, and then paint in some highlights. Okay, so this one is the before and this is the after. Now it blends more to our background. Okay, so now it's time to add the neon mask. So we just have to drag and drop this image here. There you go. And then let's use a lasso tool and let's create a selection on this neon mask over here. There you go. Let's press on Ctrl J to duplicate the selection and delete the original image. Right click here and convert it to a smart object. Okay, so now let's reposition this one. Press Ctrl T and let's flip this one horizontally. And let's try to fit it inside our subject's hood. So we can also change the perspective of this neon mask over here by holding the Ctrl key and dragging these points over here to make it change the perspective and make it more realistic. Okay, so let's try this one out. So let's create a layer mask and let's use a brush tool and use a black foreground to erase and erase this part over here. So just increase the flow to about 80%. Maybe let's try to reposition it more. So just click on this image here and not on the layer mask, and then you can change the perspective once again. And then let's add the same color balance adjustment layer. So let's click here and press Ctrl C to copy this. Let's click up here and let's press on Ctrl V. Let's hold the Alt key and click in between these two layers to create a clipping mask. So I think I can see some more reds here in the shadow. So let's go over here. Let's go to shadows and maybe let's add some cyan. And maybe some magenta just to make it blend more with the overall shadow. And maybe let's go to the midtones. Okay, so let's add some magenta more here so that it blends more to the subject's hood. So there you go. I think this looks better. And let's just erase some more details here in the layer mask. And if you want to paint back something, just press X or click this icon here to make the foreground color to white and just paint back those lost details. Okay, so after adding the neon mask of our subject, let's add some highlights to the insides of the hood. So let's click the uppermost adjustment layer of our subject. And then let's add another adjustment layer. So we're gonna choose your saturation. Let's create a clipping mask and let's colorize. Drag this hue slider to red, increase the saturation and also the lightness. So I think this one will do. And then let's press on Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool with a white foreground and just lower your flow to about 4%. And then start adding some highlights in this side of the hood. So let's go back here and let's drag this one and make it more magenta-ish. Okay, so I think this one will do. So this one is the before and this one is the after. Okay, so now it's time to add some depth of field to the overall image. So first, let's go over here to our background. Let's just rename this one to background. There you go. And then let's go over to filter, blur gallery, and then let's add a tilt shift. So this is very easy to use. So basically this part here where it is enclosed by a solid line is composed of zero blur. And from this solid line over here to this dotted line, it's from 0 blur to whichever number you've set to your settings. So in this case, it's going to be 0 to 15 blur. So we're just going to drag this one down here, and also the dotted line. So I think we're gonna start the blur somewhere on this area over here, and we're gonna change this one to 20 pixels. Or maybe just lower it a bit and change to 18. And then just click on OK. And to make it more realistic, let's add some field blur to our subject. So let's click our subject and make sure it is a smart object. And then let's go to Filter, Blur Gallery, and let's add field blur. So this one here, we're going to put this one over here and change the blur to 0. And then let's add 1 point of blur over here. So this is going to be 15 pixels. And then let's add some more here and over in this area. So this is the only part here that it is not blurred out, since this is the focus of our camera. There you go. I think let's make this one closely up top. And whenever you're satisfied, just hit on OK. Okay, so next we're going to add some light effects. So let's go to our uppermost layer. And let's drag this neon light rays over here. There you go. And we're only going to be using this part over here. So we're going to use a lasso tool and just extract this part. And then let's press on Ctrl J to duplicate the selection. Right click here and convert it to a smart object. And then let's delete this original image over here. So now we need to change the blending mode from normal to screen. So we're only going to be using this bright line over here. So I'm going to use a layer mask, and let's use a brush tool and erase this part over here. There you go. And let's add a levels adjustment layer. Let's create a clipping mask. Let's decrease this one and let's increase the brightness. Okay, so I think this one will do. Let's erase some more of this area. Now let's group this one. So click here, hold the Control key and select also the adjustment layer. And then press Ctrl G to group them. Then press Ctrl T and let's reposition this one and match the angle of our thumb. There you go. Let's press Ctrl J to duplicate the group, and let's do the same thing for the other fingers. Okay, so now let's add a glowing light orb in the middle of his hand here, like he's about to fire into something. So first, we're gonna need the star image here. Let's make this one bigger, and we're only gonna use this part over here. There you go. And then let's change the blending mode from normal to screen. Let's move it somewhere over here. And then let's add some levels adjustment layer. Let's create a clipping mask and decrease the shadows and increase those highlights. Okay, so I think this one will do. Now let's go over here to the star image. Let's create a layer mask and let's press on Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Then let's use a brush tool with a white foreground and let's increase the flow to 100%. Let's paint back those star image. There you go. And then let's select both of these layers by holding the Control key. Let's press on Ctrl J and then press on Ctrl T to make it smaller. Let's just duplicate this one somewhere over here. And then let's increase the shadows a bit. I think this one will work. And maybe add some more highlights. And then we're gonna add the glowing light orb. So let's create a new layer. Let's use a brush tool with a white foreground. And then we're gonna use a hard drawn brush with a opacity and flow of 100%. Let's make this one smaller. And just one click over here. There you go. And then for the glow, let's add a new layer and drag this one below this white circle. Okay, so we're gonna choose a lighter blue color for this one, maybe a sky blue. And then we're gonna use a soft round brush and just decrease the flow to about 50%. This will do. Make this one slightly bigger. And just one click over here. So there you go. Now we have our glowing light orb. And since we have a glowing light orb here, we need to add some brightness into the hand of our subject. So let's go over to our subject. So it's here, the uppermost adjustment layer. And then let's add a hue or saturation. Let's create a clipping mask. Let's check on colorize. And then let's increase the saturation and let's move the hue slider to sky blue. Somewhere over here, I think. And let's also increase the lightness. Let's press on Ctrl I to invert the layer mask, and let's use a brush tool with a soft round brush, and then let's softly paint back those highlights. Okay, so I think this one will do. And let's make it a little bit whiter. So let's go over to the adjustment layer icon. Let's add some brightness. Let's create a clipping mask and let's drag this one all the way to 150. Press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask and let's add some more brightness. Okay, so I think this works. So I'm just gonna add some highlights here and here. Maybe this one is too much. There you go. And maybe add some blue highlights here. Let's decrease the flow. And now let's add some text to make this one a little bit more interesting. So let's go over below our subject over here. So let's click on the background. Let's create a new layer. And then let's press on T. So we're gonna name this one Toxic, or you can write anything you want. So press Ctrl A, and then I'm gonna use the impact font for this one. Let's make this one bigger. So I'm gonna use, I think 500 will do. Okay, so I think this one will do. Let's press on Ctrl A and select over here to center our text. Press Ctrl D to deselect, and let's add some stroke to our text. So let's go to Effects, Blending Options, and then over here let's add some stroke. So there you go. So we're gonna change this one to white. Okay, so I think 20 pixels will do for this one, and then just click on OK. So we need to change the color of this one, so check on color overlay. So black will do as long as the colors of the inside are the same, and then click on OK. Okay, so now we need to rasterize this layer. So right click and rasterize layer style, and then let's use the magic wand tool. So click over here in the black space, so click one, hold shift key to select or to create multiple selections, and then let's hit the delete key on our keyboard to exclude that selected part. Now let's press Ctrl D to deselect, and this is the result. Okay, so now let's add some glow effect on this text. So let's go to Effects, choose Blending Options, and we're gonna choose Outer Glow. So this is the settings over here. So change the blending mode to screen, and the opacity to 100%, noise to 0%, and choose a color that is the same to the background, and then just simply click on OK. So the spread here is 0, technique is softer, and a size of 57. So you can change this one to any number you want, and then just click on OK. So this is the final result. And now to finish up our photo manipulation, let's click on the uppermost layer. Let's merge all of these layers by holding Ctrl-Alt-Shift-E at the same time. Right click and convert it to smart object. Then let's go over to filter, add a camera raw filter. So from here you can adjust any settings you want based on your preference. So I already saved my own settings here, so I'm gonna go load settings and I'm gonna choose this preset over here. So I'm just gonna open it. So basically I just adjusted the temperature, added some highlights and decreased the shadows to -3, added some texture and added some clarity to have some more contrast. And I decreased the saturation because it's a bit saturated. And then for the details, I added a sharpening and a noise reduction of 70 just to erase all those noise and make it a little bit smoother. And for the color mixer, I just decreased the reds to -22, added some blues, and then for the luminance, I just added some 15 for the blues. So I think that's it. And just click on OK whenever you're satisfied. And we are done with our Photoshop tutorial for today. So if you have learned something from this video, just don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload new content. Thank you so much for watching and see you on my next video.